Regulations for video games that expose children to deliberately addictive or gambling-related features should be tightened up, according to the Australia Institute. Video games are classified according to the content of the game, but the Institute's Centre for Responsible Technology says the rating should also consider a game's gambling elements, such as in-game purchases using real or virtual currencies. Otherwise, the kids who play them could become the problem gamblers of the future. Here's Peter Lewis, who is the director of the Centre for Responsible Technology. Peter, thanks so much for coming into the studio. So what gambling features are there in video games? How do they work?
In a way, it's an architecture of the game. So the experts call it variable ratio reinforcement, the idea that we respond differently to unpredictable responses than predictable sequential. So the old games that kids used to use a decade ago tended to go on a journey and you would reach the end. As games have gone from being purchased up front to free downloads with in-house acquisition of status and equipment and purchases, it's shifted to one where it's much more a randomised journey where there's a number of these VRR principles happening at once, from your journey to your acquisition of rewards to the skins. And so it ends up being this cacophony of uncertainty which drags developing minds in and is, you know, when the experts stand back and look at it, it's really similar to the architecture behind a lot of poker games. So things like an early reward to come in to hook you in and then to keep you going longer, the colour, the movement, the immersion, and then at the end of it, the opportunity to buy your way up the ladder.
Well, so is it just psychology that's involved, or is actual money involved?
On one level, there are architectural designs that just use the psychology, but there are a lot of games that are now a mixture of a business model around a subscription and then a scale up through spending money. So the particularly pernicious character of a lot of games is what's called a loot box, where you earn rewards or purchase access to a secret box that looks like a lucky dip, except it's working like a poker machine. And so you buy your way in, it's a randomised reward, and the more that goes on using those VRR principles, the more likely a kid is to want to keep going back for more.
OK, so are there any warnings on the packaging for parents about these gambling elements? Because they are classified, aren't they?
Well, at the moment, there's two things, right? Firstly, the classifications are about content, as you said at the start. So sex, drugs, violence, you'll get an MA or an R rating. But the ratings don't look at the architecture underlying the sequence of the game. So we say that should be reviewed in the ongoing review the government's running at the moment. Secondly, because there are so many games out there at the moment, it is all self-reporting. So we say that there should be a degree of monitoring about what games are out there on the market, with government with some control over enforcing and higher penalties for games that aren't being clear with how they are using these algorithms.
Should they be banned for children, for under 18s?
Well, yeah, you know.
And how do you do that?
Well, the problem is, you know, pornography is banned for children as well. So it started a broader conversation about how children are accessing content online. A lot of them are doing it through the same devices that schools tell them we need to purchase for them as part of the bring your own devices. It's interesting, when computers first rolled out in the education system, there were firewalls built into them because the government was providing it. That's all been outsourced onto parents like us, and it's up to us to work out how to do it. So we also say that better guidelines on what sort of material kids should have access to should be part of the deal in us providing these portals into the education system.
We have to leave it there. Peter, thank you. Peter Lewis.
No worries, Ross.